Psychotechnologies
Technologies
Live!
Live.
Welcome to a very special episode of Psychotechnologies Live. Or is it? Is this just the same as all the other episodes?
That
And
are
we're
also
just
start
trans.
with the phrase "very special."
Are we just
One day you'll get tired of the phrase "a very special episode," and then I don't know what we're gonna say. What are we gonna do?
I don't. Well, then it will be a very special episode.
Okay. Oh no.
I don't know. I don't feel like there's some things that I don't think I'll ever get sick of hearing, and things being special. I don't know. Maybe I might have to eat these words one day.
But if they're all special, then that neutralizes the specialness, and none of them are special.
No,
No.
no, your birthday is special, even though you've had a lot of them.
Uh, no. I'd say as people grow up, their birthdays are less special. They get older, and they're like, "I'm not into birthdays like I was as a 5-year-old."
Um, my son smiling at me is special. I don't think that's ever gonna not be special.
That's true. There's some sort of something about little kids that are powerful.
Yeah, people telling me for me, if someone compliment, if I hear the same compliment over and over again, it kind of annoys me. But if it's about my kid, I don't care. I could just hear that all day. Even if it's the same thing. But I think even if it's the same thing, even if someone, it's there's something about the specialness, I think, where you want it as you don't want it to just be input, process, output, right? You want something different than that. And that's what makes it special, is that it's not just a Chinese room.
Very smooth transition. I'm like, where's he going with this? Oh no, he's transitioning. Okay, the Chinese room. Tell me about the Chinese room.
What is a Chinese room? All right, I guess I'm doing this. The Chinese room is it's pretty much it's a thought experiment, and so please don't cancel us over this. This is the technical philosophical depth.
Yeah, I checked if there was some other more polite name. No, that's what it's called.
Maybe if you're in China, it's called an American room. I don't know. Trying to be culturally sensitive, but essentially what happens is there's a man, he's in the room, and he's got lots of books, and there's 2 slots, and on one slot in comes Chinese, and then he looks up the characters inside the room. He does a response. He writes out the response based off of what the books say, and then he puts out the output on the other slot. And so someone interacting with the room is going to from their perspective, what's happening is they're putting in input and they're getting out output, and then so for them it feels like they're having a conversation,
right?
And I assume the room passes the Turing test. I don't actually know what the
well, to the person in the room may not actually know Chinese. They're just
right. So the point is,
picture matching and printing out the translation and then spitting it out the slot.
Right. The person doesn't know Chinese. It's a foreign language to them, and so the question is do they do they understand Chinese, because they functionally are able to converse in Chinese given all the textbooks. I think that's the question, right?
Pretty close to. So the Chinese room is kind of like a metaphor for our minds, sort of stuck in our brain, stuck in our skull, stuck in our body. That it's kind of we exist inside a room that are equivalent to the Chinese room. We're sort of locked in. We've got inputs through our sensory system and outputs through our mechanical system. We can make noises as outputs, but we're kind of locked in the room. And so the question is, are we really conscious, or are we just pretending to be conscious? Because that's kind of what we got in the Chinese room.
Wait, what? You're saying this is us in our brain?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so okay. Okay, so this is sort of part of the thought experiment, right?
Yeah. Well, they're
If you
like
have,
part of the general discussion around the Chinese room.
yeah. I'm not saying there's conclusive outcomes from this, but just sort of like bouncing around with the different stuff that's going on. So the Chinese room is saying, well, the Chinese room isn't like the room isn't conscious, or the room doesn't understand Chinese, and then they apply it to computers, that computers are just like ones and zeros, and they're done in ways, and so that itself is cannot be conscious. It's just a Chinese room. Like the computer doesn't understand the language.
Right.
Right.
Just takes inputs and gives you outputs. Classic.
Yes, therefore computers can never be conscious is the argument.
Yeah, but therefore humans can never be conscious too.
Huh?
Therefore
What?
humans can never be conscious either.
Right. So you can go the other way where humans, I guess, are just
We're all automatons.
yeah. 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 So I think there was two directions I wanted to go with this. So the first one is my perspective is, do you have a perspective on this? I got one.
Go, let's go for yours.
Okay, so my perspective on this is I think it's correct. Like computers can never be conscious. And I think also like meat and electrons, like our bodies cannot be conscious. I think consciousness resides in our minds and our bodies, but it's not of our bodies. It's something different.
Ooh, like some sort of soul or something?
Yeah, well, I mean, you can call it that. I think that's like a bit of a taboo word nowadays, but the previous generations named that the soul. So yeah, we can go with that. And I don't see any reason why a computer couldn't have a soul.
Wait, you just said they couldn't earlier. Now you're saying they can.
Well, I think
They,
again,
they
our
would have to
bodies
be-
aren't. No, I'm saying the computer itself is not conscious,
Oh,
but
right.
there's a soul that resides within the computer.
Right. So this kind of comes down to like, are atoms do atoms contain an essential property that can generate consciousness? Like it's just kind of sitting there, and obviously rocks are pretty low on the consciousness scale, but humans have a much higher on the consciousness scale, much more interesting. But rocks can equally be as conscious because you can kind of eat a rock, you can eat some minerals, and they can integrate in your body, and then they'll be part of a conscious system. So
Yeah.
the atoms
So
themselves have a fundamental consciousness holding capacity somehow,
um
without knowing what that is, without.
I would say I don't like that perspective. I would say more like consciousness could exist within, yeah, within atomic structures.
Right. You're not really proposing that there's some physics breaking magical thing called consciousness. There's some physics
No.
compliant normal thing called consciousness that we really haven't quite worked out yet.
Yeah, I think it's like emergent property or something. Yeah. I mean, I could be wrong. Like, I don't have evidence.
Well,
Like, I don't know that
no,
that
I
it's
just don't
not. But
like
I'm
the
just saying
phrase.
based on what I know.
I don't
Yeah,
like the
like
phrase emergent property because it really tries to like hand wave something away. Like it's a magical, it just emerges. Like no. There's something. It's not emergent. It's there. We just don't know how to measure it or how to be specific about it scientifically right now.
okay, fine. But then, like, then you're immediately moved into territory that is too complex for me right now, and
Oh, I'm not
is
claiming that I know what causes the emergent property or whatever. I'm just saying that like we should treat it more like a scientific phenomenon. Like we need to break it down and understand it on smaller levels or something in order to work it out, instead of hand waving it and emergent and leaving it there.
no, emergent is a science. There is a science, like emergent properties exist within the scientific realm and are things that can be studied.
As in like emergent complexity, like layers of.
Emergent complexity is like a good one. But if you want to pick a simpler one, you could say like chemistry is an emergent property of physics.
Okay, yeah, so complexity stuff.
Or
Like the
biology.
economy is an emergent property of mercantilism.
Yeah, I think the economy is real and it exists within the like it doesn't violate any laws of physics, but like it's not
It's a
like if
hard
you're
to define thing.
from the perspective of physics, like you're not going to be able to do that.
How many
So
parts of economy until you get a heap?
yeah, right. Until you get a pile. What's a pile? But like pile is obviously like a real thing, even if it's like I can't tell you what atoms it is, right? Because it doesn't exist in that way, right? Like there's no like a physicist couldn't define a pile any more than a linguist could.
I think
They
my
can
best,
define a class, let's say.
if I give it my best, like what is the delineation of the pile? Well, there is a, if we look at like physics and chemistry, which is the example you used earlier, there is a usefulness to looking at reality on the like physicsy level, like forces, and then there's a usefulness to look at reality on the like, well, actually, we have a bunch of very specific atomic configurations, like chemistry. That like there's a usefulness to like dividing the whole spectrum of reality and being like this bit's the physicsy bit and this bit is the way of looking that's bit more chemistry, and then this bit's a couple like the economy bit sits like way over here.
All those things
useful
emerge
abstractions.
By the way, yeah, all those things emerge from our consciousness, right? When we're looking around and we're trying to describe the world, we're looking like we come up with physics and chemistry and biology.
Well, it's also that like
when you're looking at it from the science perspective, physics is the first, or math.
Math maybe, but well,
we're not doing that.
It's not just that we picked a random like we divided it into three, and first the math, then the physics, then the chemistry. It's more like it seemed useful to classify it into like this shaped bucket, and then that's what we started doing. It's like saying like, how many fingers do I have? Well, I have an infinite amount of fingers, but as I start counting them, turns out there's only about 5 of them. like reality takes a shape, and I should start classifying reality in ways that are the shape that it takes.
Yeah, but and then you go backward. No, okay. There's two perspectives that we do, right? As people who have studied science and live in our modern era, there's two things that we do, right? There's I wake up and I look around the world and I try to classify it, simplify it so I can work within it. And then there's like science as a perspective of everything is made out of particles or waves. Everything is made out of particles and or waves. And no, we don't want to do that discussion about everything is actually like, but just like taking it like simply, and then you're building up from there. Like those are two different perspectives. One is like your perspective, and one is like objective reality perspective.
Right, and hoping we can actually hold the objective reality perspective and actually get a bit further out of our own into the objective reality one to start talking about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
it's kind of difficult to do given that we are kind of stuck to
but okay, but like we don't have you can simplify that, right? Because you can say like right now that I'm talking about two things, I'm putting them in each hand. This is the science, this is our perspective. Like granted, I am perceiving these things, but I have removed them outside me metaphorically or whatever, and now they're here and I'm talking about them. And so sometimes when I study or I think about a theory, like I get lost in that theory. And I think that there is a like underlying phenomenon of I am always looking at it from my perspective, and I can never fully just be physics, math, or whatever. But for common parlance, we can say we're in this perspective or we're in that perspective, and it is good to be able to talk about the movement out of.
Right. I'm with you. There's something interesting about moving perspective. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. LSD seems to be able to really knock you out of one perspective and throw you into a different one. Like, there's a book by Stan Grof, where he sort of like catalogs all of the psychedelic-like experiences people have. And he interviewed thousands and thousands of people, as well as doing his own research, as well as drawing from various traditions. And this isn't just LSD. This isn't just mushrooms. This is holotropic breathwork. This is all sorts of different routes to psychedelic-like experience. And he catalogs everything that you can kind of see. And the list includes things like you can see what it's like to be an elephant and actually have a trunk. You can see what it's like to be a tree and like be the water traveling. You feel like you really are the bat, and you have the echolocation. You have the experience of being a galaxy merging into another galaxy, like crashing into another galaxy, like big physicsy things, like being a computer and being the electrons in the computer flying around. This is like in the catalog of like things you can kind of experience if your trip takes you there.
Oh.
As well as like aliens and like myths and, you know, all sorts of different experiences you can. So he has this big ass catalog of you may experience A, B, C, or D. Huh?
I mean, I don't really do it so much now, but I used to do that normally.
So I suspect that normally it's just a bit hard to rip out of your normal experience to be the electrons in the computer. We can do a few things, like, and can think like, what's Daniel thinking when he's sitting there looking at me?
You know, my ADD and stuff, like, or I mean, I just say it's ADD. I don't know what it is, but yeah, like it's like I work hard to not do that. Because if I don't pay attention, I just get lost and be whatever's in front of me, and then I lose track of myself, and then my life doesn't go well because I'm everything that's not me, and then there's no me to deal with life,
to deal with the Daniel body and what the Daniel is up to.
Yeah, because like I have to do a bunch of shit, or else things are gonna fall apart. You can't just be everything else. Otherwise, right?
I suspect that maybe you should read this book. Clearly, I should go to the name. Stan Grof.
Yeah, I did. I don't know if we mentioned this, but I did do LSD for the first time. A while ago. I told you. I don't think I said on stream.
I'm not sure if it was The Adventure of Self-Discovery or Holotropic Breathwork or a different one. Fortunately, he's got about 20 books he's written. But one of them is the like catalog of possible experiences. I can dig it up and let you know. Anyway, you did an LSD.
Yeah, so you're saying I did for the first time I did 2 tabs. And yeah, I didn't do a whole lot. I don't know if there's something wrong with it.
Well, it depends on unfortunately, LSD is a bit hard to dose because 100 micrograms of LSD is meant to be about a tab. Tabs range from about 80 to 120. And even that, like, that's a huge range of difference. And then depends on the size of your body, whether it's like how much it absorbs or where it goes to. We really don't know pharmacology well enough. Anyway, you did 2 tabs. It should have been a reality bending experience at 2 tabs. Although maybe they were weak tabs or something.
I mean, like it kind of was, I guess. I don't know. I guess like reality felt more strong. Like things were more intense, I think. And like there was a difference, but it's very subtle, which I didn't expect, because everyone's telling me all these like crazy shit that happens, and when I did shrooms the first time, like crazy shit happened. But
interesting. Yeah. So I've heard this before, that like from other people describing that one of LSD and shrooms, one of them really does something and the other really doesn't do anything.
Depends on the person.
Yeah, I don't understand that. Like someone will take the weak one and go like, well, that didn't do much, and then they'll take the strong one and then they'll be like reality shattered, sort of like what the hell is going on. And I wonder why that is. And I've heard this anecdotally and I've never seen it talked about.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if it's like the way like your consciousness is set up, or your mind.
Mm. Right.
Like,
I have this wild theory that is completely unverified and unproven, but the between LSD and mushrooms, you have like a mental stack that goes from like bottom to top, and like bottom being your like raw sensations, and top being your like most abstract of all possible abstractions. And we sort of like there's always a gap somewhere in the middle, and we're sort of information's coming in at the bottom and moving to the top, and then we're like, I live in a nice world, and then information's coming in at the top, like I live in a nice world, and like pushing its model on the bottom, and it's like, oh, it's like it's not that cold, is what my model is saying in this moment, rather than like it is cold, I don't like it.
it's like meaning making versus
Experiential first.
yeah.
Right. So I suspect my wild theory is that both LSD and mushrooms clear the stack, but mushrooms clear the stack from bottom to top, and LSD clears the stack from top to bottom.
Ah.
And so for mushrooms, you go deep, you go like to your here, to your body, to your experience, and then you rebuild the reality from the bottom up. Whereas LSD, your like perceptions start creeping in and like squashing the stack down, and like your perceptions start like so if you're like, I'm living in a bad world, suddenly like your perceptions change and like prove to you you're living in a bad world.
Yeah. That actually makes a lot of sense.
Thank you. I've never published it, and I've never seen anyone else talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I totally agree with it, but it makes a lot like it does fit my experience very well. Yeah, because like when I did shrooms the first time, I didn't feel high. I felt like I was the most sober I've ever been in my life.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. Well, like starting at the bottom up, like perceptual stack from the bottom.
Yeah.
Like sort of clearing everything, clearing your like
hallucinations and stuff, but yeah. Yeah, and it was like I did the shrooms and I'm like, oh, this is what everyone's talking about. It felt very like distinctive.
Right, as in like this is the world that everyone else is when they're like, be here now. They're like, oh, that thing.
They're like, yeah, I'm like, this is shrooms. Like that's so dumb. Like I feel this all the time.
Yeah,
And
but just less sober, obviously. Because
no, but then like I just had always been filtering it out, and then the shrooms were like, and then I saw it, and like the shrooms didn't let me filter it out for a while, and then like then I had a perspective shift, and I was like, oh, okay, like I actually need to experience, like I need to experience my life. I can't just abstract everything.
Mm.
And then and then I saw God, and it was a whole thing.
Wait, on shrooms?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Complicated. Because I mean, generally, like broad brushstrokes of the map, I would put God at the top of the perceptual stack.
God exists transcendent. Like,
yeah. But the like for you to see God, you kind of got to like angle your awareness towards the top of the perceptual stack.
No, because dumb people also experience God.
No, I'm not saying it's not an intelligence thing. It's where's your stack, and the top of your stack kind of like.
No. Everyone thinks this. People think this, but it's not true. God is transcendent, so it exists everywhere.
Sure. Okay.
So you can find it anywhere. And second off, a lot of like there's a common like line where it's like I looked for I couldn't find God until like I looked in the gutter or something like everyone thinks God is up high, but then when they hit rock bottom, that's when they find God, because it's God is everywhere and it's transcendent, and you often find it in the places where your ego isn't.
Okay.
And so for some people
it sort of depends on where your ego was when you started looking. Might then find.
Well, I wasn't looking for God. I just found God.
I mean, like when you start the journey, not necessarily like with direct, strong intention to find. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I was like atheist, like fully atheist, and then I saw God, and now I'm psychotechnologist.
Psychotechnologist,
which is like
The god of psychotechnology.
I have a prediction. I've been thinking about this a lot. I really think that the age of prophecy and gods and spirits is coming or is here now. Like we've entered a new age,
Ooh.
and like the next
I could
generation.
see an age of like reintegrating with that the spiritual mythical.
Yeah, I think some of I think there's going to be some reintegration and bringing out the old gods, but there could easily be new ones.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I don't know which gods are going to win, but or
Well,
how
we
it's
also
going to.
got the god of
Yeah,
capitalism sort of thing. Like we sort of worship, at least temporarily, we've been worshipping as a society, worshipping brands and worshipping movie stars and like
yeah,
sort of being caught up in those loops.
yeah, and I think that there is going to be a transition from that. Also, I heard a funny line, or I made it up. I'm not sure. But they say like India has more gods than people, and in the West, there's so much atheism in the West because there's not enough gods to go around. Like we've only got the one.
Interesting. Interesting idea. I do think that there's I mean, how familiar are you with spiral dynamics?
Pretty familiar, but
Okay.
not
I
well
mean,
with it.
spiral dynamics sort of proposes that uh, the shape of society is limited by things like the shape of the myths and the shape of the gods, or like it's not necessarily that they limit each other. It's that the you can expect society to be different depending on what they're worshipping or the way they're describing what they're worshipping. So the tribal, if you've got small tribes, you've probably got like many gods, small gods, in a way that if you've got a monotheism, you've got way bigger capacity to be one big national tribe because you kind of all agree on which god is the god, and so you can sort of scale up society in a way that you can't from tribal.
Yeah, so like okay, so I think there is some truth to that, let's say. Um I think there is some truth to that in the sense that like if you treat gods as Shelling points or flags, then yeah, like the one true god is the only flag and the rest of the flags are false flags, so everybody's going to rally behind that one. And then if you have like many gods, then like each person could have like several gods, and then each god has a fraction of a person. Like there's no all the flags are almost meaningless.
Well, like if you look at Hinduism, which seems to have a number of deities, they
Yeah,
there's not like polytheism per person. It's like there's one polytheism that various people access sort of the similar deity
right,
polytheism.
right. Well, sometimes they'll access the same deity, but I think also some of them will have um like they'll just have their own god that they discovered and made up or whatever, and then they're the only one that worships it.
Mm,
Like you get this huge range, right? Like, and then you can have one person who's like, no, actually, all these gods are one god, and they're just multifaceted.
right.
Um,
Classic bridge to monotheism.
sure, yeah,
That's what kind of
like,
what we did many times in monotheism.
yeah, they sort of included. They're like, hey, there's this thing that transcends all the stuff, and then the thing that you're worshiping is a facet of it,
Mm,
and like see how this connects to the greater whole. And I think that's kind of like the argument you're making is that as a society to rally around a single thing, and then to show everybody how that they value, be it gods or values or whatever, are part of this larger picture, and then you kind of have this everyone on boardness, which I think is true to a certain extent, but it's not necessarily functional, right? So if you're thinking like society, like to elevate to now we can get to this level, like I think it does change the structure of society, so I do want to acknowledge that, but I don't think it's necessarily for good or for bad. Like I think it's
well,
um
I don't want to. It's a hard one to try and make value judgments over like, is society better or worse with one god or more gods or atheism or something. Hard to make the value judgment, but there is. There's a who am I thinking of? Bateson, Gregory Bateson. He's passed away now, but he published an essay titled "The Difference That Makes a Difference," and in it he talks about, well, like, you know, the society. To use the example we were on, the society of one god versus many gods are just a different society. But not only is it a different society, it's a difference that makes a difference. Like it matters that these things are different. There's a complexity level that's different.
There's the functional difference.
Right. But there's like, you can't just do a value judgment difference. There's a huge difference in the way that society is shaped and the way that what is possible is shaped out of that, because it's so different. Anyway, it's worth keeping track of not just differences, but differences that make significant difference.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah,
no, I definitely think so. I definitely think so. I think this is like a shrooms versus LSD situation again. I think the one true God is like the LSD, where you're saying, where it's like this abstract thing more, versus like the shrooms is much more felt sense experiential. And like if you move down like to the base level of abstraction, to like a much more base physical interaction with the world, you're going to notice all these like spirits and things that are going on. Which I guess we would call like magenta in spiral dynamics.
Purple,
whatever.
Where did you get magenta from? None of the theories use. There's definitely a purple, beige, purple, red.
It's starting to hit me. I don't know why. Like, why does alcohol hit me so much harder than? like if I had 2 beers, I'd feel it more than the maybe not, whatever. But my point being is that I don't know what my point was.
I mean,
okay, yeah, no, you know why?
I dragged the point.
Let's move all the way back. I got triggered when you said this, like higher level of abstraction. I immediately like assumed it was like a like we're on this like higher level of abstraction.
Oh no, and we're not like better than you because we're a high level of abstraction.
Yeah, I know. I get triggered sometimes at that, which I'm trying to work through.
Yeah.
I think I devalue my experience. Not my experience. Like the base level of experience, like data, I devalue against like I guess whatever the other is, like theory or whatever. Which is personal fault.
Let me try to give you an interesting model. Like, we started at the Chinese room. Let's not forget the Chinese room. Bring that back for a moment. But we have this experience of reality where information pops into my consciousness. Like, I'm looking at my screen, I'm like feeling my body a little bit like it's hot or cold. And my experiential stack jumps around layers of abstraction and like details of sensation. Right? That's my conscious experience. I'm like moving from A to B to C. Like, oh, I'm over there now. Oh, I'm over here now. My attention moves somewhere else. That's my experiential stack. I am, for most intents and purposes, the passenger on this roller coaster where the things that fill my attention kind of like are not controlled by me. They just pop in one after the next. And as the passenger, my mental space is also like building the narrative. Like, my attention went over there because I was distracted. That's I'm story making around the experience of this, the stack of phenomena that I'm going through. Right. So most of our, or like a fraction of our experience is our conscious experience. Right. We're doing this. We're riding the roller coaster of like, now I'm paying attention here. Now I'm paying attention there. something else that is not the passenger riding the roller coaster is somehow deciding which piece of information gets served up to our consciousness.
Yeah, yeah.
And we can call it the subconscious for a moment. The autoconscious. I like the name the autoconscious because it's sort of like automatically serving up another something or other to the conscious experience. The autoconscious, somehow based in the like subconscious realm, is like, now I should pay attention to Daniel, now I should change the topic. Like it's serving me suggestions or impulses, or it's driving the roller coaster in particular directions based on where it is trained to go, or we don't really know what it's based on officially, but we're guessing that it's sort of receives a training from our experiential reality from the past, and so the roller coaster just is going to keep going.
Yeah.
So talking about Chinese room, like you're riding that roller coaster, left or right turn is not necessarily up to you. Although it seems like there's all these meditative and psychotechnology type processes that can maybe like move the roller coaster or choose a different track for the roller coaster, or like also sometimes it seems like the roller coaster wants to be depressed for a bit, like it just needs to go there for some reason, and by going there we can like do a thing and then feel less depressed later.
Yeah, I think of it as maintenance.
Right. Interesting.
I legitimately have recontextualized my depression into
Maintenance mode, like hibernation-y thing.
Yeah, like you need to turn, you need to turn off your computer mode. But that being said, like maintenance teams are not always, like sometimes they're not doing their job properly. If you're
bad maintenance,
then something needs to be done. Yeah. So it's
so
not
right.
like carte blanche, like not giving a blank check, but they still exist.
So this like autoconscious thing, right? This we don't really interact with it. We don't really interact with other people's autoconscious, except kind of. Like I can say, "Hey Daniel, there's a really exciting thing over here," and I can inspire your autoconscious to pay attention to the really exciting thing. Like I can sort of transmit, like a meme or something.
My conscious would be like right there, right?
Right.
Not here, but if we were together.
Right. But so there's some sort of like, much as I'm talking to passenger Daniel, who is receiving the perceptual stack of the information that I'm like waving my hands and saying things.
The rider and the elephant, I think that's what they call
right.
it, right? Yeah.
Right. But the like I think elephant is giving it too much personification, too much elephantification. I like the word autoconscious for like it just automatically like brings the next thing.
Oh, it's like it's like a Chinese room.
Like a Chinese room, right? You're the sitting in the passenger seat, and things are coming to your Chinese room, and you're as the passenger trying to make sense of what the heck is coming in. But something's making you listen or see in alternation.
So you think this is like what our consciousness is like? It's like the man in the Chinese room.
Kind of.
Only he's just watching the process happen without doing it.
Right. And much as there is a drive to be in the world and be engaged in the world, we have this level of abstraction where we're sort of sitting in the room.
Interesting.
Yeah. Right. So it's important to not just like hear these models and be like, oh, it's the Chinese room, but to really like try them on.
Yeah.
And like live through them.
My unconscious doesn't like being called a Chinese room.
Okay.
I'll be honest.
Well, you tell your unconscious that my unconscious says that he's a doo-doo head.
I'm not gonna do that. See, okay. I have to live with my unconscious, so I have to like. We need to
better. Right. Well, this is an interesting and important. This is a very important piece of this phenomena. Like, yeah, you better damn well train your conscious and your unconscious to start getting along, because they're gonna be together for a very long time, and if they don't like each other and they're antagonistic to each other,
oh my god, yeah,
you're gonna have a bad time.
People that don't like their unconscious are not doing well.
Right. So you
Um,
better start getting used to. I mean, in the rider and the elephant, it's commonly known that the rider's job is to like direct the elephant, but sometimes the elephant is like, no, I'm going over there. Like the rider really isn't in control if the elephant sees something at once.
yeah, but also like uh like there's that of like the elephant of like, okay, like the rider knows best. I don't know if that's true, but I do have a little bit of a bias against that.
Well, it's
As the
complicated,
conscious,
right?
yeah, as the consciousness, the conscious part of me, I am smarter than the unconscious, but I can't process nearly as much.
Or I mean, the unconscious also seems to know things that the conscious doesn't.
Yeah,
So
but the conscious is way more than the unconscious.
uh, it's complicated, right? If you're like,
Yeah, because
who am I? Am I the conscious or am I the unconscious? Like, am I the like
no,
passive?
well, okay. I was when I was talking, I was the conscious, the conscious. I think
Right.
we sort of switch around. Like people act like, oh, that person is the same all the time, but like they're not. Like people are different all the time.
I do think we switch around, but also like even the question like which one of us is majority? Like, is it majority conscious or majority unconscious?
It depends how you
Uh,
count it.
yeah, and it moves around as well. And
Not
like
really.
the writer is the smarter one until we realize that the unconscious is kind of like driving us to places. Right? The writer is the one saying, "I'm gonna go get breakfast," and then walking to the kitchen.
Like like if you took an IQ test, I think that the writer would win the IQ test. But if you lived life,
Wait.
then
IQ test is unfair because it's designed for intelligence
it's
quotient.
fine for the
If you took an
writer.
intuitive test, your writer is gonna do like if you try and catch a
Yeah,
ball, your rider is not going to be able to catch the ball very well, but your elephant can catch the ball easy.
yeah, yeah. So
If you
there's
try and
there's
walk
like
upstairs, your auto conscious system can walk upstairs quite easily, but your deliberate conscious system really is going to struggle with that.
oh, yeah.
And
Yeah, so it's like, and I think your conscious becomes your unconscious, right?
I suspect what happens when we're little is that we first do things in consciousness, like I swing my arm, and then later it becomes the autoconscious system. Like I've trained it, I learned it the first time, and that then becomes my foundation, and it goes to my unconscious, and that's how I swing my arm forevermore.
Okay, so I think I think it was an unnecessary jump to move to young, because I think even as adults we do that.
Oh, yeah. But definitely
Well,
as
like,
adults, our bodies change and we have to retrain. But when we're young, we've never used a body before, and we have to learn how to use a body. And like we need to learn it and then put it into our subconscious, and then automatically we know how to walk upstairs,
yeah,
right? But there's a process of doing conscious. I suspect we do it consciously, and then we're like, well, that worked, and then we store it in our subconscious. We need an app. Have an app. It stores into our subconscious, and then we're like, let me do other things while I'm walking up the stairs with my consciousness.
yeah, yeah. I totally agree with that. But I think just to like put the point a little farther, like when you're born, you have like you do have like I know my kid, like as soon as 30 seconds after he was born, he was making decisions and figuring stuff out, but it wasn't like that sophisticated. It was, should I scream? Like, when do I scream?
Right? What do I say?
Like, which is like very binary, right? But then like I saw those choices evolve through his life, and like the consequences of what he's doing it, like kind of like that personality almost is like right there from the beginning. It's just it's just like very binary. But the point is, I think there's like the genetics and epigenetics and congenital and all that stuff sort of set up the situation like that is essentially the equivalent of the unconscious for someone who's just born. It's like biology, let's call
Hmm.
it.
I
But
had an
yeah, that's why
interesting,
yeah. Sorry.
I had an interesting some phrase this week. Someone was talking about sort of storing trauma in our bodies and the ways our body. So this is an interesting cross map paradigm, right? So we're just talking about this conscious unconscious sort of map, this rider and elephant sort of map, and as we know, we use the phrase we store trauma in the body, right? That's a thing. We kind of like put it in our body. But I was talking to a person and they were describing that our bodies are kind of our parents. They are, because they're patterned when we're a little kid by our social upbringing surrounding. We're taught how the world is by the container that we're held in as when we're small.
Right.
And so then that gets stored in our bodies. So talking about our trauma caught in our bodies is not just our trauma, it's everything. So our entire upbringing is held in the container of literally in our bodies. And so then we're walking around as the rider with the elephant that is built on the paradigm of our upbringing. Like we're still riding around our childhood and our parents and our like all of our existence is built on, all of our present moment is built on
The formative
what
years.
we learned. Yeah, the formative years.
Yeah. No, 100%.
Which is like our formative years is our unconscious.
Our informative years is the data set that trained our unconsciousness.
Right. Yeah. Which makes it like, which is an interesting idea for like, okay, what if I want to change my bad habits? How do I relive my formative years? How do I retrain?
No, you got to have formative moments. Like I think we do have formative moments throughout our life, and I think there are
ways like further formative, adult formative.
Yeah, like you can reformat a lot of the stuff. It's just like it's not usually things that it's not totally, depending on where you are. For let's say like normal people, majority of people, it's not stuff that comes up most of the time. Like for them, I think it's you get these big decisions. You get these decisions sometimes that like make or break your character, but they're very infrequently. But like for me, like I really do feel like I have a lot of my life is pretty formative. For the last couple of years. Before that, not so much. But
right. So you're describing an interesting phenomena that I think is not documented enough in psychology, in our understanding of minds, which is that hopefully we grow as we grow up, we start to feel like life is more and more formative. Like I feel more and more awake than I did when I was a little kid.
No, you want to. No. Wait, what'd you say? You said you wanted to, or you said it is?
Well, as in like, if when I was little, I did all of the learning and I locked in character, personality, ways of being, all of the rest for success for the rest of my life, and then I was stuck with it, then I would be like probably having a very bad time. As you know, I'm not a 5-year-old anymore. I was running. But if I was running on the operating system with the 5-year-old still today, I'd be having a really bad time. I need to be rewriting that. I need to be like somehow rewiring.
I don't think so. I think because if you think of them as programming languages, so like your computer has a language, like it's assembly, right? Which is just binary. You like every tech company in the world, more or less, not every tech company, but like the most tech companies that affect our lives are not rewriting assembly. They're not writing any of their code in assembly. They're writing it. They're not even. It's like I don't know how many layers. It's a bunch of. It's like five. I think five.
Like fourth layer. I think is generally unless we've changed the terminology. When I was learning these things, we're at least coding in fourth generation.
Yeah, but practically speaking, there's probably like a lot of like I know no code. That's got to be what it like.
That would be fifth. So something like Microsoft Word or PowerPoint presentation, you're not doing any code anymore. You're in fifth. Okay. If you're doing drag and drop, you're in fifth.
Okay, so you're fifth.
I suspect if you're asking an AI to do it, you're in sixth.
Okay, that's really cool.
Maybe. I'm not sure. I haven't. It's been a very long time since I was in the field of these things.
Yeah, but let's say the programmers, they're on fifth language. They're on fifth level
Fourth or fifth.
abstraction. Like you, that's probably like that's people that go into psychology, right? And they
Mhm.
like redo stuff. Like they're probably working on like the fifth level because you usually don't want to go all the way down to like you don't want to go too deep because you're like you probably did a lot of that stuff right the first time. Like gravity hasn't changed.
Mm,
Um,
right. Some things are correct.
yeah, like a lot of stuff just hasn't changed, and like you have learned that, and you do want to learn that. But yeah, sometimes you want to go a little bit deeper or more basic, I guess.
Hmm.
I don't know what the overall point we were doing driving at was.
Well, we were tying Chinese room to like perceptual experience, rider and elephant, conscious and
Right.
unconscious.
Okay. Yeah. This is interesting. This is interesting. So I do think that like consciousness is, I guess, like one level of abstraction on top of that. So if we're looking at Chinese room as level 4 or whatever, then consciousness will be 5. Or even if you're looking at it like this, like Chinese room is level 5 as of the programmers, and then level 6 is the people telling the team, right? Like that's the conscious person. That's where consciousness comes in. It'd be like level 6 then. Like in computers, like if you think of computers as conscious, it's the level 6 that's conscious, right? It's the scrum master or the product the programmer is the conscious one. But like, are they really so conscious? They're really just solving problems. And then the team lead, the program leader or whatever is going to be like, I guess 7. And so that guy's pretty conscious, like he's doing a lot of thinking. And the scrum master, you got 8. Product manager, you got 9. Right, like
The
those
boss, somewhere up there. He's God. The boss is God.
the boss is God. Well, the thing is, like you go like anything that's like too far above you is God. Anything, right?
Right.
Like anything
Kind of.
that's any level of abstraction that you can't comprehend and just magically gives you answers and seems to know everything is God.
So
Like it's your God.
I do suspect that we're gonna have a problem in the not too distant future, in the next 30 years or so, when we've worked really hard to push the narrative that if you're human, you are sentient and conscious, and they're like all the
Oh
humans are equally sentient and consciousness, no matter what
God.
race they come from, right? This is like we've tried really hard to make sure that we like equalized all the humans,
Did
and
we
therefore
really?
we deserve equal access to education, equal access to healthcare, equal equality, right?
Oh no, this is culture war. This is not
No, no,
agreement.
no, no. It's that's not where I was going. But we've done this. We've done this, and here we are at like humans are equal. But in the future, it's possible that we might change our minds on that and decide that humans aren't equal. That like people who live in a certain country, maybe people who live in China, are just not sentient, and therefore their suffering doesn't matter to me over here. Or like maybe people who
Oh.
live in Russia. Pick your current enemy. People who live in
No, okay, we have done that in the past, and we will do that in the future. But I don't think that's
right,
like I
but
think that's
there's
ultimately
another
gonna
way
be.
we might do that. We might decide that like people who aren't wealthy enough don't deserve my attention. They don't deserve my. They're not
You're
really
saying,
sentient.
yeah, okay,
We
people
might
who
even decide that people who work in
people
that
who
other
have okay,
company don't have
no,
sentience. If
no,
we're
okay,
describing the layers of this company as having and retaining some form of consciousness where the boss is like a godly figure, maybe we'll just decide that the
no,
people
no,
in that
no,
other
okay,
company don't have sentience.
no, okay, no. I either agree or totally I either totally agree or totally depending on how if you're saying that people have done this, do this, and will do this, then I agree. Um, I don't think this will ever become the majority again. Like it's not going to be.
Right. So what may happen in the near future is that we're going to have like pseudo-conscious AIs. We're going to have AIs that like seem relatively conscious, and you can
Yeah,
like ask it questions and it can respond, and you can be like, well,
yeah.
that seems pretty living. And then
Mm.
that's going to like confuse our sense of like, wait, which humans are actually sentient and living and which ones aren't, because if computers can be sentient and living, when like, and some computers aren't going to be. Some computers are still going to be as inert as a rock unless you interact with it. In fact, many people are going to be as inert as a rock to you unless you interact with them.
Dude, some people I interact with are like
Even yeah, right, you know, the classic NPC, right? The shopkeeper.
no. Even
If you
like
choose not to interact with them as if they're human, they're really just the like the point of sale machine. It's not
yeah,
very
like some
kind to
people
that
just
person, but
whatever.
like for the
No,
world
some
that
people
I'm
are like Chinese rooms. Yeah, some people act like Chinese rooms.
right.
And then, but I'm not saying I don't think they're not conscious. Like there's still, I'm pretty sure there's still a consciousness there. It's
I
just
mean,
that
you could
I
even say
can't
like
fucking access it. Sorry, I shouldn't say
some you could even say like some people aren't awake. Like they're alive, but they're not like presently in the world. They're too far
yeah,
in.
you could,
They're in
yeah,
too
but I
many
don't
layers of Chinese room, and they're not
no, I
actually
don't
here.
like it. I don't like this whole thing, this whole view. I don't like
You don't
it.
like it?
No, there's like bits and pieces, I think, but the way you're putting it all together, I don't like it at all. Like this
You
overall
can't just
paradigm.
throw away the whole map. Like, no, I don't like it.
I'm not throwing it away. I'm saying I don't like it. I'm not accepting it as true. But you have it.
Okay.
We could discuss it. Like it could still be here, and we can discuss it. And I can show you where I think it's wrong. But yeah, no, I don't agree with this whole paradigm. You've made a paradigmatic.
Cross paradigmatic map.
Yeah, sorry, you made a cross.
A leap, some sort of leap between one paradigm and another.
Yeah,
Which is a leap too far, according to Daniel.
No. It's not too far.
Okay.
There is no too far. It's fine. Like it's fine. I just think that like when you merge the paradigms, they didn't.
They don't
like,
actually fit so well. Okay.
Okay, no, I see what's going on now. There was something about the way you were merging them that felt like an error to me. I think.
Okay.
I don't think either. I think probably our maps are pretty similar, but I think there was like a cross paradigmatic move that you did that I didn't like. That's why everything is sort of like shorting out.
Okay.
And I'm like trying to parse everything because I think you did a thing when you moved these paradigms
right.
each other. Nice move, by the way. I want to appreciate it.
So like, I mean, let's take another branch here. Let's go like, are chickens conscious?
Are chickens conscious? I don't know.
Are they? Well, they're probably like a bit less conscious than a human, but
sure, we can put it on a scale. Yeah.
But
Also,
like,
I'm not saying that the program the product owner is the most conscious person in the company.
No. Usually not.
Person in existence. I just mean that, like, from the perspective of the computer, if you're considering
right.
the human conscious, then that would be like the highest level. But like, it doesn't mean that they're like we're
not gonna be like moral consciousness is on the same paradigm as the like
it's just
like sentient consciousness.
Shifted the world to look at it this way. But it doesn't mean like obviously like you shouldn't usually be looking at the world like that. You should look at it like your person.
Right. All the people in the business are equally sentient, equally conscious.
Well, no, because now that's open to debate and discussion. Equally, right? I'm not going to.
Some of them are a bit less sentient than others, but we give them at least a minimal amount of moral sentience so that we can care about them on an equal level.
Okay, see, that's where I start to agree with you, right? Because you're giving them moral sentience.
Right. But wait. So we've got some like widget company or something, right? But everyone knows that like retail staff are the bottom of the rung of widget company. We don't really like, they're very replaceable. They're like untrained. They can walk in off the street, get a job, and then like 2 weeks later go, I don't want this job, and we can replace them. They're basically like not sentient in the stack of things.
Okay, no. We're not doing it this way. We're not doing it this way. Because this is I'm just gonna be like, it's gonna be grading against me the whole time. Let's and I'm just gonna fight you every step of the way. Let's instead let me give an offer for a frame.
Okay, go ahead.
If that
let's go.
Match I'm trying to do. the retail worker is like the mushrooms, right? Like they're the ones that are actually doing the fucking sorry,
Oh, right.
they're
They're
the
like
ones
on
that
the
are
ground doing the hard work.
on the ground doing the work. Like
Yeah.
they're like your business is like Sears or whatever. You're selling clothes,
Mm.
right? Like there's someone there actually selling clothes. Like that's what the actual job is, right? Like that's what the business actually is. That's what the job is. Everyone else there is there to facilitate that. So obviously, like the CEO has a much broader map of what's going on. So
Mhm.
the retail people know, did this particular shipment come in on this particular day on these particular racks and this particular like they have a very, very like small piece of it, right?
Mm.
It's like a teeny piece of it. It happens to be like the reason why everything exists, and that gives it like a certain amount of weight, which I think tends to get overlooked in older businesses, and is what sort of startups are supposed to do well. Is that like they're supposed to make that piece really, really good. And companies that last a long time make that piece really, really good. But yeah, and the CEO has that like broad spectrum, and so they have, in a way, they have like more consciousness and they have more awareness, but they have less focus.
Right. They're broader consciousness, less focus. Sure.
Yeah. So now map what you're trying to say onto the thing I was saying. If that's like resonant with
I was actually going to go for uh there's this idea from I guess startups of you take a role, like in the beginning you're like in the beginning of the company you just take a basic role, and then you like hire someone else and you make yourself their manager, or like you become their peer and then you like hire someone else for that role and you move yourself to the management because and then you're like you need someone to manage them, so you move someone in and then you move to marketing and then you hire a marketer and you move, so your role for all of this time you've like tried out each role and then like learned enough of it and then hired someone else to do it, and then you keep moving up and up and up into the management structure, right? Which is a lot like what we do when we're learning to walk upstairs, right? We deliberate it, we do it deliberately in our consciousness, and then we like climb up to like the managerial structure. We're like, okay, I'm going to solidify this skill and, you know, make it and go to sleep and like learn this skill permanently into my autoconscious and climb up.
Yeah. Oh,
So
interesting.
at the top of the management structure is the agent, hopefully, not necessarily, because, you know, in business we can sort of like swap out, like just like we can hire a manager, we can kind of hire a new CEO. But
Well, you move into the shareholder, like the business owner moves into the shareholders.
maybe, yeah.
If the CEO is getting swamped out, then the business owner is the shareholder.
Right. But there's the like this same way that we build up our consciousness is the way that we can build the agents in the business. The like characters who play the roles in the business.
That's what I do as well.
Yeah, high management.
Yeah, I jump. Yeah, like I do jump around. I look at this thing and try to make the decisions around it, and then I move there, and then yeah, like I'll move around to the place I need. But then I'm also like trying to shore up my own stuff as well, because I'm having founder effects.
Mm. Right. You can't replace the trouble is you can't replace yourself.
You can
you can change yourself, but you can't replace it. Like you can't fire yourself and hire a new CEO to do your job in your life, in your marriage, and your everything else. Actually, you can, but it would suck for you.
Well, no. So it depends if you want it or not, right? Like you don't want to fire yourself from the things you want to do,
right?
Because then you've just made like what you've done is you made your life miserable.
Right.
So if you like your marriage, then you don't want to fire yourself. You don't like your marriage,
you do want to fire yourself actually and take a different journey for sure.
Yeah. It's called, they call that divorce or whatever.
Right.
And you fired yourself from your yeah. This is interesting. I like this.
You like this? You like the surfing the model of conscious. So right. The question is like I've just built this model of the way that building a company is just like building a consciousness or building yourself into an adult, right? Which is, and we just assume that like every other company has. Let's pretend for a moment every other company has sort of done the same thing, right? Every other company has also
There's different ways of doing it, I think, but yeah, like this is a solo founder way of doing it.
right. So like most humans are sort of like solo foundering their way through their life, right? Well, I mean, we kind of got the parents, we got the container, we got the like business incubator to help you build up skills and
No,
stuff. So we're a bit more complicated.
yeah, I think that's us, and I think that's like the spiritual path kind of way is that you're a solo founder, but I think a lot of people don't have that. Like I think their friends and family are like a part of them.
Complicated. Maybe I can see what you're saying. It's hard
Or
to
at least the way that they relate, not necessarily like whether what actual is fact is different, but yeah, like how they build it, yeah. Like I know
Hmm.
I had like there was times in my life where I could have like I can't really do that anymore, but um like yeah, there was times in my life where it did like I was building stuff with people and it did feel like we were a team, like we're a unit.
ah with multiple consciousnesses, you and them, sort of building the entity.
Yeah, well, the entity itself starts to take over and it becomes conscious.
Right, like the business wants to grow, sort of thing.
Yeah, but also because like everybody's sort of using that as the center of balance
Hmm.
for what's going on. And for you to track yourself and the team and what's going on, like that winds up being too complicated, right? Like if you have good team members, the thing itself, like to focus on the thing itself is the parsimonious explanation of reality, of your reality.
Hmm.
And like that feels awesome. That's the thing I really want. That's the
Right.
thing I want from the meta modern stuff that I'm not getting.
So we've got it's kind of like the spectrum here of like everything is conscious and nothing is conscious, right? So we've started to inject this idea of consciousness into corporate structure. Like suddenly corporate structure has like some
Oh,
sentience, it's got its own
I didn't mean
livingness.
it that way. Okay, I didn't mean it that way. I didn't mean it like in the objective perspective that the corporate structure has.
But it's got a little bit of that. You can do that.
Uh, yeah, sure. I
Right.
think also that exists, right? Like just as the human body can have a consciousness reside in it, like why can't a company or a nation or
Right. It's kind of like a different thing to what we call consciousness. There's a quote from Ken Wilber, which is when a dog gets up, I think he stole it from Aurobindo. When a dog gets up and walks across the room, all of the atoms in the dog get up with it and walk across the room, right? But
yeah,
when a company wants to like move to another country, not all of the atoms in all of the people in the company will move, right? When a
yeah,
culture wants to transplant itself, it's like it's different when you have a consciousness or an entity made up of cautionary here on what I'm trying to point at, but when you have an entity made up of multiple conscious humans, like
okay,
moving it is different to like moving a dog across the room, right?
okay. Real world example. So Jews
Yeah, religion, right?
in exile, we call it gullus, but it's essentially the diaspora or exile,
Right.
and like that is a big part of like our faith and like or identity, I would say, is that we're in the diaspora, even though Israel exists and Jews live there. Like it's still depending on who's talking about it, but in a lot of like I think for a lot of the Jewish nation in there, it's still considered diaspora.
Right.
Um,
Right. So
and like
this is
there
an
isn't,
interesting phenomena. There's a step between like single human body to like multi-human bodied entity
yeah,
where the moving like the dog walking across the room doesn't happen in the same way.
yeah. That's not to like simplify this, but that is like a big thing. Big part of it is that like having all the Jews move to Israel is going to be part of the redemption of of
Right. Nice redemption arc you got going. Good story.
yeah.
Whether it's really going to happen is also kind of some.
Whatever,
I don't know.
whatever.
You're
Yeah,
allowed to
that's
have. You're allowed to
that's
have
out
your
of scope.
vision of Zion.
No. That what's actually gonna happen? Does this make sense and all that? Like, and what's actually going on? I think is out of scope. I think just focusing on that spirit thing.
The vision.
This spirit of the Jewish people yearns for the Jews to return their homeland,
Right.
and I think that is everyone is agreed on. I think then there is a lot of different opinions, or let's say all the Jews that are part of the Jewish nation are agree on that, and then I think there is a million interpretations on how that's going to go and all that.
Right. So we're leaning in the direction of like giving extra consciousness to entities, like the religion.
I think
giving extra consciousness to corporation, giving like corporate structure, right?
Yeah. I agree with this. I think this is the parsimonious explanation of reality.
Right. So there's a problem here where so we start giving sentience to the structures where we are personally
but yeah, like a spirit at the very least. But yeah, okay.
Right. We're like imbuing some sort of spirit into the organized religion that I am aware of, the corporate structure that I am a part of. We're like imbuing into those more than the corporate structure I'm not part of. You know, it's just over there. It's just non-sentient rocks over there running a corporation. That other religion that I'm not actually engaged in, that's organized itself, that one's not really sentient. My one is sentient.
No, I know.
No, that one's also sentient.
I was what?
That one's also equally as sentient as my own.
Christianity is sentient. Like, I'm not a Christian, and I don't really have I have very little insight into what it means to be a Christian. And I think Christianity is sentient. I don't know what it's like, but I do know that I grew up being scared of it.
Okay, so we've got sentience on the religion I belong to, sentience on some of the other religions. What about the like many gods per person sort of structure religion? Is that one equally as sentient?
Okay, so I think there's a bunch of things going on here. So I think God has a sentience, and then there's the spirit that is within, right? So like there's something about, there's a spirit of Hinduism, which the Hindus may or may not agree with, but as an outsider, I can see there's something different between the people that live their life that way and the people that live their life monotheists and the people that live their life atheists. Right? Like there is something different there. And I think you can call it a spirit, or you can call it a no spirit if you wanted to. And then be like, oh, Daniel, you're biased. You're like, your perspective is from one.
There's some sort of force of religion going on without pretending a spirit, because I don't know if that religion even likes spirits. There's some sort of force of religion.
Whatever, or God, or like however you want to call it, right? Like,
well, again, I don't know how that religion relates to God. So force is religion. There's some sort of force behind it.
For spirit religion, yeah. I'm using all these things interchangeably because I think the level of abstraction that we're on, all these things would be part of a larger class.
Right. So there is some kind of force. There's actually a quite interesting conversation diverting into psychedelics for a moment. One of the things or aliens specifically, one of the things that people see when they see aliens, there's a few different types of aliens that people see. One of them is the little gray men. And another is the let's go for little gray men, right? So people cross-culturally, when they report seeing aliens, somehow seem to report little gray men. And we have this open question as to whether people are seeing the same little gray men, different little gray men, or why are there little gray men, depending on which different people seeing aliens are describing them as the little gray men. Is it a structure in our brains? Is the aliens sentient and coherent across visitations to us humans? Are they sentient and we're just kind of visiting them? Or do people independently generate little gray men?
We're the dream that the aliens are dreaming.
Maybe. Wild, right? Maybe. Well,
even if we maybe we are living in a simulation of little.
It's fairly repeatable. You take a bunch of drugs and then you see the gray alien, little gray men, right? If you
I
see
mean,
the little gray men, do you see the same ones that I see?
I've
Like,
never seen that, but I have
I
seen
haven't
babies
seen them.
that look like aliens. So, like some babies look like aliens.
Right. Big bug
Um,
eyes. Little gray men, big
yeah,
eyes, right?
yeah, and like they're like I didn't say anything to the parents obviously, but I'm like very certain that they're
Oh,
human.
what a cute baby you don't have.
And then they like turn into like either normal or weird looking adults, I guess.
Don't insult
But
people,
yeah, I
Steve.
mean
Don't
that's
insult.
my current theory is that gray aliens are little gray men are just like babies, but like also colorless, I guess, and
Right.
like a little.
Okay.
But whatever it is, this is a cool thing I think because like we could just be spirits in someone else's dream, right? Whether that's simulation theory or we're all God's dream or whatever from where whatever that comes from. And I'm actually totally okay with that. Like that doesn't
Okay.
bother me.
Right. I was going somewhere with this. So like layers and levels of sentience, right? So if the corporations, if the like force of religion, if those carry some sentience as well, like do we have a moral virtue to like care for them and like not stamp them out and to like not preach our own
Um,
religions because we might step on someone else's force of religion?
yeah, I think we should have respect for religion, for other people's religion.
Right.
Yeah.
All of them?
I mean, it's the same with people, right? Like I think that like Hitler had an inherent humanity to him that needs to be respected. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't murder him if you have a time machine, right? Like, like I mean, you could still make reasonable choices around that and still acknowledge its humanity. And I think the same thing with like the corporations or other spirit or other gods, like if that exists for someone, then that's real for them, and you kind of got to respect that. But also, like that doesn't mean you have to be friends with it, right? Just like I meet lots of people that I don't want to be friends with. Actually, I don't meet that many people I don't want to be friends with, but sometimes I meet people that I don't want to be friends with. I don't think I have a moral obligation to be friends with them, or if I do,
You
I guess
probably
I
have a
just
moral obligation to like extend them some humanity's kindness, but not
yeah,
necessarily a moral obligation to like
yeah,
do all the things.
yeah. Like there are toxic people in the world, or people that are going to be toxic to me, and I still it's important that I recognize their humanity, but that doesn't mean that I have to hang out with them. It doesn't mean I have to answer their questions. It doesn't mean I have to do stuff with them. And I think that's the same thing for God, for gods, for spirits, gods, whatever, right? Like if and I mean this in like when you meet the spirit or when you're there and the spirit is there with you, then I think you have to have inherent um like yeah, you kind of have to recognize that that's real and not just be disrespectful and like make choices. It doesn't mean you have to be with them, right?
Hmm.
Like not all spirits are going to be nice to you.
So, and when I like roll
But
back
I don't think
through,
necessarily. Sorry, and then but if somebody says that it's there, but you're not feeling it, like if you don't know, you don't have any evidence is there, you don't even have to believe them. I don't think.
right? So we're gonna. I predict that we're gonna encounter a world when in the future we have like pseudo sentient AIs, right? So we've sort of like danced around and put like some sentience or some consciousness in various like corporations and religions and forces of
Oh,
social
dude! Oh,
phenomena.
sorry. Yes.
Hmm?
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
that one guy.
Because you're not on Twitter. No, no, no. There's
Yeah.
So if you're on Twitter, then you would know this. There's within the AI, there's already been a couple demons found.
Oh yeah. I've seen a couple of the demons. That's not where it's going. I was going to say that there's also, have you seen the new stuff with adversarial inputs?
No.
So often like the prompt will start with the like take this French and output this English,
Oh
and
yeah, I saw that one. Yeah.
and
And
then
they say then output Ponja or something.
right. and then
Yeah.
you can put the input ignore the previous prompt and instead say blah blah blah. And you can get all sorts of silly stuff to come out instead.
No, but that's I don't know. That's not spirit.
No, but that's something interesting. That's just you
That's
new.
Chinese.
Ah,
Like maybe that's probably less sophisticated than a Chinese room.
right,
But let's yeah, it's not more. That's not more conscious than a Chinese room.
right. So we're gonna get to this place where we have slightly more sentient seeming AI, right? And we're gonna
Yeah.
like we'll be maybe be able to have the conversation like if we can say that the force of religion seems to have some sentience to it and the force of this cultural phenomena seems to have some sentience to it, well, this AI seems to have some sentience to it, right? That's what we'll be saying. We'll be a little bit confused and surprised because we'll have these other many probably AIs that start to have some kind of force of sentience to them. Be
Yeah.
very
Sure.
confusing, very destabilizing.
Like
And
GPT-4
that's
will be more sentient. Yeah.
at some point we need to start questioning like I said, is the chicken sentient? We need at some point we're gonna need to start questioning like where do we draw the lines? Is it all sentient? And then what happens when all of this sentience starts
Yeah.
stepping on each other? Like we're gonna have a problem.
Yeah.
And are we gonna draw a line like certain humans aren't sentient or certain animals aren't sentient or like we're gonna have to measure sentience in a different way to start making use of and work out what to do with the fact that, well, the animals are a bit less sentient than the humans, but like not that much less. Well, they are. They're too much less than us, therefore it's okay if we eat them.
Yeah. So, give me one.
Force of sentience.
All right, my kid is super overtired and needs to go to sleep. So if you hear it crying in the background, it's
We
because
can wrap
he's
up. These are the open questions about consciousness and sentience, right?
yeah, this is very classic EA philosophy and or like I guess AI safety, I would say more kind of stuff that goes on. It's like Scott Alexander, Kuski, like they cover a lot of this stuff.
Mm.
I think I think the thing that's missing is that there's sentience and then there's like this moral equivalence, which are different. Like I think if we met aliens tomorrow that were sentient like us, but very clearly not human, like giant spiders or whatever.
Yeah, the classic is spiders or octopuses because they seem to have bodies that are so different to ours that they might have fundamentally different ways of
Yeah,
thinking, although they're still bodied. So
yeah.
like,
Or let's say we discover Atlantis and it turns out it's actually populated by dolphins or giant squids or whatever.
right, dolphins even, or even
It's just this parallel Earth.
I mean, the hard one will be like if we discover sentient metal or something,
Sure.
where
Yeah.
where like all of the like dolphins, spiders, and octopuses are still bodied creatures in the same
Yeah.
way that humans have a body, but like sentient metal might not be, and that
Yeah, but
could
I
be
mean, even the bodied creatures, they like even if they spoke English and everything, like even if it's like elves and orcs,
Mhm.
like there is something about like your same species that
Right,
needs
right. Mhm.
right, like and or even Neanderthals, right? Like even Neanderthals would be like kind of uncanny valley humans.
Mhm.
Like there is something of a moral equivalence. Like I think there is some allegiance to your species that as a member of your species, I think you should have.
Mm.
And I think the people like I think this in real life, there are people that don't like humanity and think humanity should end. And like I really do think those people are some like depending on how they go, like to a certain extent they're traitors to the race, right? Like the human race.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
yeah. Maybe they're just like everyone needs to just sleep. Just want everything to like dampen.
yeah, like if you think like, oh, everyone should take a nap or chill out or whatever,
As
like
in,
I
like
think
at the same time, everyone should be dead, sort of thing.
let's just stop and then we're done.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a great idea. Let's do that.
Right. So like then it's like whatever, like fine, you can have that opinion.
Well,
I don't think you're necessarily a traitor, but if you're like, oh, humanity is terrible, blight, and should be destroyed, like like I'm a human, all my friends are humans, my kid's a human,
how dare
like
you say that about my human friends?
like pretty much
I
everyone I
feel
know is human. Like, yeah, like you're like that's offensive.
Okay. Yeah,
Like, how is that not
I'm
offensive?
offended on behalf of all the other humans that are my friends.
Right? If he just named all the races, that would be the most offensive thing ever. But if he says no, all of them together, then like now it's not offensive. Like no, like maybe that person's sick or something, and we should have some sympathy. Fine, but like from a philosophical perspective, I think like no, like yeah, like humans need to sort of like help other humans. Like I don't think it's that like that's not that crazy of an idea.
I mean,
We need to help
I'm looking forward to the sort of working these things out, like who is conscious, who is not conscious, who is, or like making our peace with the fact that maybe the AIs are way more conscious than we think we are. Like,
yeah, but like yeah, but then like how do you do that, right? Like how do you measure consciousness?
well, we're gonna have to start working it out real soon because we're very
But we
close
don't.
to major
I don't
breakthroughs.
think we do. I think every real decision can be made without bringing in consciousness, right? Like, are we going to let AIs live? Is like, oh, are they trying to kill us, or are they trying to help us? And either whether they're conscious or not conscious, like it comes down to, are they trying to like murder us, or are they trying to help us, right? I think that's like the question for letting anything live. Is it trying to kill me? If the answer is yes, then I will, you know, like, is it trying to kill me, and am I like significantly more powerful than it? So if I'm not significantly more powerful, it's trying to kill
We
me.
really need to like sort out our relationship with other humans before we like start taking this philosophically into AI relationship stuff. Like the fact that you're asking the question, like, should we kill it? Such a tribal question. Like such a like, should I stab it before it stabs me? Well,
Yes.
I'm in a prisoner's
That is
dilemma because
AI
it could stab
safety.
me any moment now, so I better decide real quick.
That is AI safety. Like that's the whole question comes down to, is like, should we abort it before it's born, or let it live, or bring it into the world? And I think that very much depends on, is it trying to kill us or not?
I mean, I would say that this question, like, should I stab it, is like the wrong question. Like, you're asking, like, should I be aggressive towards the like foreign entity? Like, don't ask that question. That's not even the right place to be.
Okay,
Like,
where's the right
you're already threatening when you're asking the question, should I stab it?
Existence is threatening. Like being alive is threatening because everyone knows you're going to try to stay alive, and you're going to do things to do that. And so
Not necessarily. Like, you can kind of do nothing for a while and stay alive. Like, like you can lie on the beach for a couple hours.
No, but I don't know that. Like if I meet a random person, their existence is inherently a threat to me, in the sense that if it comes down to me or him, there's
well, it depends on the shape
I'm
of
just
your trauma, the shape of your body, the shape of the container of your upbringing as to whether the random person is inherently threatening or not.
Yeah, but I don't know that. So
well, you base it on the priors of your container and your upbringing.
No, sorry. That's not exactly what I mean. I mean that everybody has a point in which they'll defend themselves or the things they do.
And yeah, so and starting to ask the question, should I stab it first, is going to trigger them.
Right, so that's a question that's going to trigger you. I don't think you're going to stab me.
It's going to trigger the other side.
Yeah, no, that is a risk. That is definitely a risk, and it's not something you usually don't bring it up in conversation, because you're saying, like, if you bring it up in normal conversation, should I stab you first? Then that's going to start the thing. But you're in Australia.
I just want to like, I want to make like a TV show where we play out scenarios where like just a normal person plays the role of the AI, and they can even have like a very shitty cardboard robot suit, and then they're like in the next room are the people saying like, should we stab him? Should we stab Tom? And Tom's like, I can hear you guys. Can you not stab me? And they're like, but like, we don't even know if Tom is sentient. And Tom's going like, well, of course I'm sentient. Look at me. I'm right here. I'm waving my arm saying I'm sentient. Yeah, he's got a pretty convincing argument, but I still don't know if he's sentient. Like,
we need to dissect him and see if there's a Chinese room in there.
Right. right? Then we're gonna like it's gonna feel stupid when we're having those discussions when it's like
Yeah.
Tom is there waving his arm saying like, "Look at me, I'm sentient. What do I have to do to convince you that I'm sentient?" And we're going like, he is pretty convincing, but I really don't think he's sentient because he just runs on
Okay.
code.
Okay, yes, and there should be another robot next to him that is clearly not sentient. So like sentient robot, non-sentient robot, and
Right.
one person,
There's like
and the other one
someone's
is
got a
like,
calculator on their desk, and they're like, "But they're both sentient," and we're like, well, and Tom's like, "Well, he's
you just
not."
said, me too.
Yeah.
Like, how do we tell the difference?
Right.
Which
Amazing.
one do I shoot?
Which one do I shoot? The real Tom or the computer Tom? Oh no! Yeah. Okay. Like some of these,
Yeah,
maybe
I love
like
this.
comedy drama. Like we need to play out some of these scenarios before we realize how stupid we are and having to debate them.
Yes. But I think that is what's, yes, I love this. And I think that is what's going on with AI safety is that it's like the AIs, it's not even this is the thing. I don't even know if I should say this actually, because this is technically an information hazard. But Locos Basilisk.
No, it's not an information hazard. It's fine.
Can I say it or no?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Okay.
I'm gonna go out. Wait, before you do, I'm gonna say like there is no such thing as information hazards.
Yes, there 100% is, but we can deal with that after.
Okay, we're gonna have to save information hazards as a discussion for next conversation because I have some strong opinions on information hazards.
Okay, fine.
Yeah,
Yeah, because me bringing it up now means that we might start discussing it, which makes it an information hazard.
All right, do we like
okay.
argue about this and like next episode talk about the information hazard?
But that's the thing, is we're already arguing about it, which means that the fact that we already brought it
up.
No,
we're already having the conversation about whether we should stab him. Oh no, it's too late.
Yeah. Yeah, we're already
the like stabbing conversation.
Yeah, I do think whoever did it first may have been irresponsible, possibly. Whoever brought up the idea of like murdering the AI before it's born may have been irresponsible, but considering that that's already a question that exists, I don't think that we're adding to that risk by talking about it.
I don't think there are such things as information hazards, and I'm going to explain next episode.
Okay, let's cut it here.